Hello. Hello. I think I feel like streaming. So I've been doing a super quick, rough sketch of Blade and his teammates from Blade Trinity. Not a great movie, but I feel like trying it, so we'll see. And I see that even in this, I've sort of forgotten a few basic lines. Yeah, I'll figure it out, I think, in the inking stage. So, nothing too exciting here. Just sort of Blade with one of his weird semi-automatic guns. I couldn't decide between gun and sword, but I went with gun. And a lot of my pens are sort of dying, so I'll just sort of do what I can, and we'll see where things go. Hello, Towns. Let's see, Townsville and Charles. Townsville? Villatale? Viatale? Viatale. Who knows? Not me. All right. So let's see if I can do some quick. Well, maybe not too quick because this brush is splitting. Gonna do some quick sort of outline type parts. Yeah, that's a little smoother. This brush is thicker, but that's okay because I'm gonna stick to banging out the outlines. And then we'll fill in some detail. Towns via tail, but Andrew is fine. Okay, and we also have TARDIS Rider, welcome back, and Darth Salad, yo. And I'm looking a little slouchy here. Hey guys, growing my neck beard a little, pull my head back. Okay, I'm cracking myself up at least. Might as well, right? Mm. That's right. I'm drinking from a big Mountain Dew bottle like a baby. Um, so I hope everybody's doing well. I'm just sort of actually I'm quite busy, but I was just sort of waking up and I came across like several references to the old Blade movies starring Wesley Snipes, and I was like, geez, think I kind of want to draw Blade. So I am. Simple as that. Whoops, I've got a couple windows I need to close. All right. Hello, Milos. Why draw the worst one? It is the worst one. I definitely agree there. But I thought that visually, like his teammates and him looked good. So that's just, you should give him classic Tomb of Dracula wooden knives and bright green goggles. That's from Andrew. That is tempting. Despite him having kind of an awful look in his original issues of Tomb of Dracula, he was still a pretty great character. To move a few things. Right from the beginning, he was an interesting character. It's interesting. I don't think even up through the '90s that Blade ever had his solo book. It was only after the movies. He was always in Tomb of Dracula and Night Stalkers with Hannibal King and Frank Drake. Yeah, interesting. Tomb of Dracula is one of my favorite comics. That's from TARDIS Rider. Yeah, Tomb of Dracula is one that keeps sort of threatening to be an episode of comic tropes, and then I just sort of put it to the side to get to later. But eventually there's either some creators there or characters. There's something there that I love it. I just keep sort of putting it aside. Let's see, who's the main artist on Tomb of Dracula? Was it Gene Colan? Wonder if Gil Kane did any of those issues because I kind of want to do a Gil Kane episode. He was sort of one of those classic Marvel illustrators that doesn't necessarily always get his due, but he's a really good guy. What else? Oh, look at this. There's a bunch of comments. Mueller says Blade has been oddly popular lately. It probably has to do a lot with Black Panther. Yeah, it might. Hooded Cobra Commander says, I think it's interesting that you lay ink lines this early. I am too afraid to do any inking until I have a fully rendered pencil drawing. Well, if I was having anybody else ink it, I would have super tight pencils. But when I'm just sort of sketching uh, in my live streams, I'm usually pretty casual about a lot of this stuff. Not always, but usually. So I sort of trust myself to find the drawing in the inking stage. Um, yeah, I can have different sort of techniques depending on what I'm doing. Uh, he did have a single run. Okay, Miller says that Blade did have one single run before the Blade movies. I'm looking for a specific pen. I guess this will do. TARDIS Rider. I don't think I've ever seen a Blade movie all the way through. Oh, I like the first two quite a bit. They're fun. Maybe a little of their era. Kind of low budget, but they're good. Some of Wesley Snipes' best action work. Yeah. And then by the third one, he was kind of phoning it in. He wasn't having a good time at that point. He wasn't very invested, but so be it. I don't think he knew how good he had it at the time. I'm drawing the sunglasses a little bit on the sort of large goggly side in homage to his original comics appearance. Make of that what you will. Couple things. Let's see. Andrew says Tomb of Dracula is one of my all-time favorite comics. Blade was so blaxploitation back then. Oh, 100%, 100% blaxploitation. Blade had a 10-issue solo series in the 90s before the movies. Oh, that might have helped jumpstart it then. I guess I didn't know that. And finally, Andrew adds, Gene Colan was the artist of the entire run of Tomb of Dracula, and Marv Wolfman wrote nearly every issue. Yeah, Marv Wolfman's another guy that I really want to do an episode about, so I got to think about this. Yeah, so Blade in the comics is not. I can't think of a classic, definitive series of issues by anybody. I think that the best Blade has gotten might be that Tomb of Dracula series. Those guys were having fun, and they knew that, like they cared about those characters at that point in time. It was nice. I remember in the 90s, we still had a bootleg movie tapes on like VHS in the city streets. I remember my buddy picking up the first Blade. It was like still in theaters. We'd seen it, but he wanted it on VHS, and he got it. But of course, it's just full of background theater noise too. Those things always sucked. Not really a thing anymore. Now everything's digital. Mark Bariner joins us and says, "Hey, what do you think about Malcolm Butler?" Malcolm Butler? What should I be thinking about Malcolm Butler? Wesley posted yesterday on Facebook a picture of him in costume saying there's only one, and that got me very excited. Well, Milos, that is because Wesley would love to come back to the character now, but I think that Marvel's kind of moving forward. Now, I bet if they ever did a Blade reboot that they would, like, offer Wesley some sort of a role in it, but he's not going to ever play Blade again. That's who is this? Malcolm Butler. Malcolm. Did he? I'm just like trying to see like what did he say something recently? Oh, there's a rumor that he was benched for saying coaches lose games. Huh. Weird. I hadn't heard about that. Sorry, guys. Small break where I was reading the news on Malcolm Butler. Yeah, the guy that Pat's benched. Yeah, interesting. All right, let me see what I've got here. I'm trying to work on my overall sort of arm movement. My temptation is always to just use my wrist and fingers, but supposedly you get a lot more control if you can use your whole arm. I'm trying, but you know, it's hard to form new habits as you get older. So my idea for a Blade movie that I've been working on my head is basically Logan meets Dracula Untold. That sounds fun, man. Karen G, thank you for joining us. Look at the lines on that jawline. Absolutely. Dude, this is based on Wesley Snipes in his prime, and even if it wasn't based on Wesley Snipes, we want Blade to have like he's a superhero. We want him to be chiseled. So yeah, I gave him quite the jawline there. Sometimes I notice when I'm drawing that I'll actually be holding my breath. It's basically so that I have more control, and but it's completely unintentional. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh, holding my breath again. I don't know if any of the rest of you that are artists find yourself doing that. I'd be curious if, hopefully, I'm not the only one that's doing that. Yeah, I need to get some new brushes before I live stream again. These are, I don't know if you probably can't quite pick it up here, but they're sort of starting to split, so I have to move a little slower than my instincts tell me. All right, let's see. It's easier to practice using your whole arm if you use an actual brush as opposed to pens. Yeah, and I do have a brush that I will sometimes use and some ink, but just trying to work on my overall sort of speed and all when I do these. Not necessarily. I'm trying to work on a number of things like habits and stuff, not necessarily the trying to produce the best finished drawing that I possibly can. Of course, you always want to draw well. It's just I'm trying to give myself better habits. It's hard. It's hard. Some Karen says, I sometimes do that if I'm drawing traditional art since it can be changed as easily as digital medium. Yep. Hi, Aldi. Oh, you just wanted to go to bed, huh? Well, you don't have to stay here, man. You ain't got to stay here, man. Sorry, I was slipping into my old Kentucky impression. Hey, dude. How's it going? That's basically my Robert Kirkman impression that I'll do to him. Hey, you catch the new Walking Dead, man? I did. It's great. Oh, thanks, man. Oh, geez, I was just like sort of whistling and not even sure where it was going. Like I just knew that there was something in my head. Uh, for some reason, I guess I've got Elton John in my head. I was whistling "Goodbye Yellow Brick Road." Watch YouTube demonetize this video now for like those 2 seconds. Took me a long time to actually like the Blade from the movies since he was so different from the comics. The whole half vampire thing rubbed me the wrong way. It is pretty different, the direction that they went, but kind of cool too. Like you want a guy like when it's just Blade, yeah, like you kind of want him to be the toughest ultimate badass. So I sort of get it. They were kind of like cribbing a little bit from some of the other characters in Tomb of Dracula, right? Like because he's a little bit like Frank Drake, yeah, or a little bit like Hannibal King. Anyway, yeah. Milos happens to be a big fan of the Blade movies, I think. So be careful what you say, everyone. Be respectful. Everybody has their favorite characters, and like their favorite version of those characters. Uh, I would say that Spider-Man might be my overall favorite character, at least when I was sort of growing up. Like I don't know, always found him quite relatable. Um, Trying to think of like if I have sort of a definitive run though. I'm not sure about that. I'd have to think. I guess I know it when I don't like it, but then I just sort of back off from comics for a while or like that particular comic and I'll just sort of say, that run's not for me. But when it comes to superhero stuff, eventually everything gets reset. So you just need to be patient with superhero comics. That's my opinion. First movie is my all-time favorite, says Milos. It helped me get over my mom's death when I was a kid, and taught me not to think of myself as a victim. Wow, I guess considering what the subject matter of the movie is, I get it. That's some pretty serious stuff, man. I'm really, it's interesting. Yeah, I get why this might mean a lot to you. You should let Wesley know. Um, the '94 Spider-Man animated series are the best, says Karen G. And Darth Salad agrees. Yeah, I was in like college and starting my work career and stuff when all that was coming out. So I'm aware of it, but I wasn't really watching it at that point in time. I grew up like watching the reruns of the one from the '60s. Spider-Man, Spider-Man does whatever a spider can. Kind of limited animation, but some good voice acting at least. Uh, Pretty weird plots. Some weird stuff for sure. Spins a web any size. Exactly right. Exactly. All right. I should be focusing on Blade. I kind of like drawing Hannibal King because I feel like that's what I look like when I work out. We can have fun here, right? Let me at least finish the outline of his head. It'll bug me if I don't. Yeah, I've really got a song stuck in my head right now. Well, we all have moments like that. All right, back to Blade. Every once in a while, you just have to give yourself a little bit of an artistic break by filling in some blacks. It gives everything some form and it lets you relax and look at the overall big picture and try to decide what kind of details you need to focus on, what you need to start getting right. Was the first Blade before the Matrix? It was. The first Blade came out in, I want to say, I don't know. It was the year before the Matrix. What was the Matrix? It was 98 or 99. So um, whatever it was the year before that, summer before that was Blade. And yeah, it sort of beat the Matrix to that sort of whole like black leather kung fu look that was in vogue for 5 or 6 years in movies. Oops, sorry, I closed my little window where I can see how I've lined things up so that I'm sure that I'm showing everybody what I'm working on. Uh, Andrew says it was part of a very specific period of time's new coolness. It was, yeah, because you sort of had like it went like 3 years in a row. We had Blade, Matrix, first X-Men, all of them sort of kung fu ninja stuff in black leather costumes. So it sort of created a brief style. And they all came out so fast that it was probably unlikely that they had influenced each other at that point in time. But they certainly influenced a bunch of other lesser movies that came right after. My cat has decided to join me. Do you want to draw? Good boy. Take a look at the chat room questions in just a sec. Appreciate everybody joining me while I doodle around. Julio says that David Goyer ruined the trilogy. I mean, yeah, and yes, Andrew, he directed the third one, but the thing is, he also wrote them all, so it's like he. And honestly, like, yes, David Goyer did not do a great job directing, but listen to the behind the scenes stories from like Patton Oswalt, and like Wesley was out of his mind, out of control at that point. Like, and he's the star, and he just like was not coming to set. He would only film close-ups. They had to work with the stunt double for almost everything and rewrite scenes to feature the supporting cast because he didn't want to do anything. So it's like it's not all the director's fault. You know what that's all I'm trying to say. He was running into some big problems. Rube Star asks, when's my birthday? Early August. Early August, so quite a ways to go. Trying to figure out what brush I want to use for some of these details. And I'm going to use this. Do you think Kill or Be Killed is influenced by Death Note? Oh, that's an interesting question. I sort of wonder, because there are a few similarities in terms of like a demon sort of convincing a guy to kill, aren't there? Yeah, so I don't know. It's possible, but I don't think I've ever heard writer Ed Brubaker say that he was influenced, and I'm sure that he would point it out if he was. So it may just sort of be that there's some coincidental elements there. It's an interesting question. Yeah, I'm really not sure. TARDIS Rider says, are you still working on an episode about Jewish comic creators? I am, yes. Yes, it's, it, there's a lot of reading and research when I do sort of a topic instead of just a creator or an issue. So it's just taking me a while to compose and put together. And then on top of that, like, sort of go like, okay, well, people don't really watch my episodes when they start getting long. So what's the real relevant stuff that I can sort of hone in on so that I'm giving a concise but relevant take on things. Anyway, I'm working on it, and I do find it quite interesting. I've definitely come to some conclusions, a few observations, and yeah, it's very, very cool stuff. Came across some interesting old interviews. Yeah, anyway, it should be a good episode when I get to it. I'm planning ahead a lot of stuff right now. If any of you are on my Patreon, you know that I currently have a poll up about a big topic. It'll basically be my next big topic after I'm talking about uh, Jewish creators in the early days of comics, and then I'm planning a lot for my trip to Tokyo and Hong Kong in just over a month because I want to do some special stuff there for my show. So yeah, busy planning ahead right now. Like lots of pre-production work, I think you could call it. I want to want to talk about the differences and how manga is produced versus American comics, and then what like sort of guides the popularity of them. There's some definitely interesting stuff, I think. I hope I can make a really special episode for everybody when I go there. Let's see. People talking back and forth about some stuff. Hello, Dark Dragon. Thanks for joining us. You guys are funny. Come on, Brush. Stay with me just a little bit longer. Stressful. Stressful when your tools don't quite do what you want them to do, but the saying goes, it is a poor artist who blames his tools. So we'll just have to make do with the tools that are working. Milosh says David Goyer barely wrote the first two. He just wrote the story structure. And Wesley would just improvise on the spot. And I love that because that's the way a lot of movies in Serbia are made. Fair enough. David Goyer is very hit and miss. I mean, you know, he's worked on the Batman trilogy by Nolan, which I think is quite good. I like it a lot personally. I like them all. And then he's written stuff like, you know, the made-for-TV Nick Fury movie with David Hasselhoff as Nick Fury, and that's just abysmal. So, yeah, an interesting cat. I can't quite pin down what he does well and what he does not do well, like where his influence, what his influences are. I don't know. It's a tough guy to understand. Do I have this lined up? Oh, I lost my window again, so I'm not sure. Dark Dragon says, I'm almost done with my comic. Hey, that sounds nice. What's your comic about, Dark Dragon? Give us the elevator pitch. Let's see. I'm pretty sure the Hulk movie was actually released theatrically some places. I've seen day bills for it from Australia. Oh yeah, the Trial of the Incredible Hulk. I think that was released in theatrically in some parts of Europe and Australia. So that was technically a early Marvel movie. Here in the States, it was a TV movie, but I believe it was released theatrically here and there. That one wasn't too bad. A little weird, but for its time, it wasn't too bad. Hmm. Um, Dark Dragon. I have made this character who is a brutalized vigilante who is in loose connection with the police, and he's clearing out some gangs. Okay. Uh, Julio says, "Did you know that manga refers to any comic, not just Japanese?" Yes. Mr. Who says, "Good art. Thank you." Let's see here. I need to start spotting some serious blacks to make this work. Hi, kitty. What? I don't know what you want. I know what you're talking about there, Andrew. He's talking about the 1990 movie where Stan Lee played a Marvel editor call, and he plays, I think, himself because it's Marvel Comics, Eric. Eric Roberts plays the main character, a guy who's looking for a girl that he saw abducted by an ambulance, and he plays a Marvel Comics artist, and he has frequent like one-on-one conversations with Stan Lee in this sort of bullpen artist studio. It's a really bad and weird movie, and Larry Hama, the writer of G.I. Joe and Avengers and Wolverine, he's in the movie. He doesn't have any lines, but he's always in the scenes where they're working at the bullpen. He's an artist in the movie. See you, Dark Dragon. Thanks for stopping by. Do you think if I drink enough Mountain Dew when I do these that eventually I'll get a sponsorship deal? That would be nice. Mountain Dew helps you draw. Mountain Dew. See, Mueller says that Stan Lee was in an episode of the show Chuck. Never saw that show. I'm aware of it. Never watched it. And then Andrew, or Townsville Tale, says that he caught the ambulance on TV back in the early 90s. Yeah, if you ever want to see Marvel depicted on screen completely inaccurately, but still starring Stan Lee, the ambulance is your one-stop shop. Because most people know that they don't have their artists like generally come in and work there. Maybe their editors and some of their writing staff, but yeah, it's pretty weird. Hey Shirley, nice to see you again. There have been artist shops in American comics in the past, but that kind of thing sort of went out in the late 1940s, early 1950s. Well, no, there's still plenty of studios, like, like where just a bunch of people rent space and work there all day. But the way that the ambulance depicts things, it's just very phony. Mark Berner says, "Remember the What If the Marvel Bullpen was the Fantastic Four?" Actually, I don't remember that particular issue. That sounds kind of cool and funny, but no, I don't remember that one. Hmm. What If is a really, I love that comic. At least the idea of it. I love the idea of it. And the trick is that you have to give that title breaks sometimes because it it needs the well needs to be replenished in a sense, because if you're just sort of saying like what if different things happened, you're dealing with origins and big events, and eventually you sort of run out of good ones to say like, well, what if this happened or that happened. So um, yeah, I like what if, but it it needs its breaks every once in a while so that you can come back with really cool ideas. Anybody discover any new comics lately that they like? Like try something new and go and get pleasantly surprised? Let's see. Okay, this What If, it's a 1970s Volume 1 What If. It has Stanley, Jack Kirby, and I can't remember who else. Uh, Good chance John Romita could be in there if that's the time period. He's a pretty big guy in the stable at that point in time. I think he was officially the art director. Uh, anyway, who knows? Who knows? Not me. Oh yeah, I've heard about that. Aldi mentions looking forward to the Back to the Future manga. Uh, Universal and Bob Gale have agreed to let some manga publisher do a take on Back to the Future, so that could be interesting. Saul Brodsky as the Torch and zoning on Invisible Girl. Not sure what that is. Um, you mean backward? Ah, Darth Salad, funny guy. Pay attention to what you're saying, Aldi. Jokes. Flo. I don't know who Flo would have been back in the 70s. Doesn't ring any bells. Mueller says started reading Thanos recently. I was blown away. It's as good as Mr. Miracle and Black Bolt. Well, a lot of people say those are two great comics, so that's a pretty good recommendation there. It's so funny that Thanos has become such a massive villain when you go back and look at, like, his creation. I don't think that Jim Starlin himself had any great ambitions for the character. I mean, he admits to sort of ripping off the ideas of Metron and Darkseid to create a new villain, and he goes up against Iron Man, and he just wasn't like the cosmic threat that he evolved into. It's an interesting evolution for a villain. Now he's sort of like, I think he's generally considered like, Marvel's most dangerous cosmic type of villain. Kind of took that throne away from guys like Nihilus and Galactus. I think Galactus is even a good guy now. It's interesting when you see like characters sort of evolve like that, like in a way that their creator probably did not intend. Just sort of took on a life of its own. I always find those stories kind of interesting. Brink is in modern 2000 AD. Brink. Oh, okay. There's a great ongoing story called Brink I've been enjoying about humans living in space stations over a destroyed Earth. Space cult detective stuff. Oh, that sounds really cool. 2000 AD, huh? Nice. Vasilis Saraglo. Saraglu? I'm guessing there. What are your thoughts about the new Spawn movie? Obviously, if Spawn's creator, Todd McFarlane, wants to not really have it focus on Spawn himself and just sort of be a dark detective noir mystery story, he can do that. I'm not sure that that's what audiences are necessarily looking for. I almost feel like that. I know that he told stories like that with Hellspawn, but I feel like people want Spawn himself to be more of a main character. But we'll see. That's just what I keep hearing is like that he's like, oh no, Spawn will be like, kind of like just this creature in the night that isn't like, the main focus. The main focus will be on detectives in it. All right. Not doesn't really excite me, but maybe I'm the weirdo. I don't know. Do you think Thanos will have his copter from Spidey Super Stories in Infinity War? I would love that, but something tells me no, that Marvel would not allow that at this point. I loved reviewing that issue of Spidey Super Stories, by the way. That was like, I just loved it. Even Hellcat is so casual about the cosmic cube. Drat! I dropped it. Well, there's no use crying over spilled milk. Like, and then the police arrest Thanos, the regular old New York City police. That would be an interesting booking, right? Ah, the space aliens trying to take over the universe. Book him, Dano. I'm looking forward to seeing a villain in a big Marvel movie that isn't gray or silver, says Dark Salad. Well, villain characters, villain colors are what they are, but I don't think that Vulture was those. I mean, I think he had a splash of green to him and the brown bomber jacket. Like that was pretty cool. I was surprised. I would say, oh yeah, Townsville Tale says that that's not Hellcat, that was the Cat. Um, yes, excuse me. It was the Cat, not Hellcat. Um, good point. I think that Vulture ended up being the most interesting villain in the Marvel movies. I don't think he's the best villain in the comics, not even close. I think he's, borderline third string. I think he ended up being, because of good writing and good acting, the absolute best villain that they had. Now, I think that Loki and Kingpin and Kilgrave have all been fantastic villains. Marvel has had a few good villains in their movies. But I'm going to say that Vulture was the overall best done. That's my take. Hot take. I watched a video about that. Mando versus movies big gray villains. Oh, I'll have to look that up. That sounds interesting. As soon as it becomes a trope, you got to try to look to subvert audience expectations. So if a lot of villains are black, gray, silver in the movies, just keep them muted. Townsville Tale says that I confused Hellcat and the cat in my video review, thinking they were the same person and the comic had censored her name, but that isn't the case, different characters. Now that you're saying that, I completely remember that, yeah, that Patsy Walker and, what was her name, Greer, something Greer. It's not coming to me. I know that they're different characters. That's interesting that I must have jumped to that conclusion more than once. Moon Knight used to date Tigra, and Khonshu loves to taunt him about that. Sigamig says, "Hi, Chris. How long are you planning on streaming?" Honestly, probably not too much longer, folks. I'm just sort of messing around tonight. I'm having fun, but I do have other things to do. I've got two videos to work on. One is a Patreon exclusive that I'm almost done with, and one is getting my next episode script ready so that I can record it tomorrow night. I'm almost ready there. And then I have another piece of artwork that I need to color. It's from the last stream. I drew Mainframe from G.I. Joe. I owe this to someone. I need to touch up a few things, but I need to color this. So I've got a few things that I need to get done tonight. I just was in the mood to sketch and talk with some folks, so that's why I've been here, but probably can't stay that much longer. Let's see, folks talking about Greer Nelson. Thank you, Townsville Tale. Sorry I made that mistake. It's frustrating that I can't go back and edit a video, really. I mean, I could delete it and put up a corrected version, but that doesn't really do anybody any favors. So I have to sometimes live with the fact that I make the occasional mistake. Sometimes like if I had a big following, I would do extra videos saying like corrections, and I would like list some of the corrections where I made a mistake. I don't think I would have to do that many, but it would like sort of make me feel better to like try to reach out to the audience and acknowledge, look, I did make a mistake here or something like this, like where I thought that the cat was Hellcat. That's a mistake. Doesn't affect fundamentally my review, but I didn't get it right, and I would like to do a correction. I think right now, if I did that, I would get like 10 views on it. I don't think it would really help anybody. You can go back and add annotations. Yeah. And I think that those are so annoying to deal with. I always turn off like, that stuff when I watch videos. And Dark Salad talks about like Vulture was the best Marvel Cinematic Universe villain, definitely. Funny how Michael Keaton has played 3 flying super guys. It is funny. It is funny. Although I would say that all of them are different, and Birdman was certainly playing on his image. He really elevated Vulture into something special. Michael Keaton has had a great several years of doing some really amazing character work. Yeah, yeah, he's 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 something special. I think yeah, I would love to start seeing a lot more of him. He's just he's just really good. He can be really funny. He can be really scary. He's good. What else? I think it's so crazy. Todd McFarlane is directing the movie. He's talking about the Spawn movie. Maybe all his work in comics will help tell a good story. Maybe. Mark Bariner says, I loved Kurt Russell's ego, how he casually revealed. You know what? I won't spoil that just in case. But Ego was a good villain. He worked thematically, and Kurt Russell elevated him from like what he could have been if it was some other less engaging and compelling actor. Uh, that really traded in on a lot of the Kurt Russell charm. It's fine. It's fine. I'm just saying, like, yeah. I ultimately didn't find. I found Ego to be unique enough, but he's still sort of boiled down to a guy that's going to take over the world. And I just didn't. I found him like scummy and easy to hate when he started revealing how bad he was, but not necessarily as deep or as petty as I might have liked to truly hate on him. But your mileage may vary. Thanks everybody for dropping in and having a chat. That's it's always it's always nice to hear from folks, see what's important to them, see what they're interested in, um, connect on that level. Whoa, ooh, heartburn. Agents of Shields had some great villains, especially Calvin Zabo. Kyle MacLachlan did an amazing job. He did. That was pretty strong. I also personally ended up liking Hive when Ward became Hive. I thought that was pretty good. Yeah, I like that. I think Agents of Shield has evolved into a better show. Like took took a while, and they still have plenty of filler episodes. Like 22 episodes a season is too much for that show. And I'd love to see them like just deal with more stuff that's like fallout from the movies. Like I'd love to see them go after I don't know some loose Ultron technology for just like coming up with a totally random idea. I'd like to see them a little more connected there, but that ain't gonna happen. So whatever. What else do we have? Uh, Lately, Karen G says, I have been browsing the Tapastic webcomic site to see interesting art styles. It's great for inspiration. Tapas now. Tapastic. Hmm. At the end of Spider-Man Homecoming, this is Sigamigs, was Michael Mando supposed to be a Marvel villain? Yeah, he's the Scorpion. Well, he hasn't become the Scorpion yet, but he's the Scorpion. His character's name, and he's got a scorpion tattoo. He's in jail, so. And he says that he has connections. So, uh, don't be surprised if they give him the Scorpion suit at some point. Townsville Tale says, I think the problem is that most of the Marvel movie villains have been really movie-ish. They've done a great job translating superheroes, but they haven't really gotten supervillains. Movie-ish as opposed to comic bookish. And you know what? I think that problem is that if you give them too much time, you're taking away from the development of the main character usually and the supporting cast. So it's a strange fine line they need to constantly walk. But yeah, I think that a bunch of their villains have been pretty one note. But it also doesn't bother me that much because not all of them need to be like that interesting. I think what worked about Spider-Man in a lot of ways was that it dealt with much smaller stakes than we might be used to from superhero movies in general, and even like past Spider-Man movies. The stakes were much smaller. It wasn't somebody trying to take over the world. It was somebody from a working class background like Peter himself, and it was an interesting contrast. He certainly represented a threat, but it wasn't the same threat we've seen a million times. And I think that a lot of the superhero movies could definitely benefit from like scaling down some of their stakes and like, you know, it doesn't have to be life and death for the whole world. That's a very vague concept. That's very overblown. Like if it can be like a threat to just one person in that character's world that means a lot to them, and the stakes become much more personal and relatable. But I think that Marvel's sort of getting that. And then you save the big drama for like the sort of Avengers, Civil War, those kind of movies. But I'm just musing aloud about this stuff. Julio says, I've heard Killmonger from Black Panther may be a great villain. Killmonger is a very interesting villain for Black Panther in general. Like in the comics, I think he's got a lot of differences from our main character and is always that's made him more interesting and more relatable. So Killmonger has a lot of potential. I missed something, but because Karen G is saying to Sigmigs that style is so cute and so unique, that's what I was referring to. There are some artists there with such weird but cute art styles, makes me want to draw more. Well, that's awesome. Anything that influences and inspires is a really good thing. I've got an interesting question. Who out there is your favorite creator who's currently working? So not necessarily all time, in case you wanted to say somebody like Jack Kirby or whatever. But uh, who is your who's your favorite currently working creator where you'll pick up almost anything he or she makes? part of the problem with Marvel villains is that they all seem to die in the end, except, yeah, a lot of them have died, but a lot of them could also come back, you know, or their technology could come back, or cosmic things could happen, so who knows. Townsville Tale says, John Wagner for writer, Henry Flint for artist. Very unique choices. Wow. All right. I respect that. Um, Townsville Tale, are you from the UK? It sounds like you might be. I mean, you're reading 2000 AD. You're talking about John Wagner being your favorite writer, so I'm just sort of reading between the lines there. Karen G says music is a great muse. You said that you had a song stuck in your head. Which one is it? And what kind of music do you like to listen to when you work, draw? The song that's stuck in my head now is "Goodbye Yellow Brick Road" by Elton John. Kind of a random one. I don't know where I would have heard that recently, but it's in my head big time, which is actually a pretty cool song. Um, but normally I actually don't listen to too much music. I tend to listen to spoken word podcasts when I draw. If I'm not like talking to all of you guys, I'm probably listening to a spoken word podcast. Um, let's see. I missed a couple things. Sorry, guys. Sigamig says Brian K. Vaughan. His writing just clicks for me. Me too, Sigamigs. Brian K. Vaughan's great. Karen G says, for me, I can't decide between Yoshihiro Togashi and Naoki Urasawa. I'll help you. It's Naoki Urasawa. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But Naoki Urasawa is something special. He might be the best writer slash artist working in comics today, in my opinion. I think he's amazing. Amazing. Aldi says Grant Morrison, rock solid choice, rock solid. Townsville Tale says that John Wagner, Henry Flint, Judge Dredd stories are the best. Darth Salad says, is Liefeld Senpai a valid answer? Yeah, if that's your favorite, that's totally understandable. Like, a lot of people love that dude. I think you're probably joking, but no, like, it's totally cool to like him. I have nothing against Liefeld, for the record. Well, at least not in terms of what he does artistically. It's not for me anymore, but at one point it really was. And if it's somebody else's favorite, like, and that gets them into comics, great. All right, let's see. Oh, Townsville Tale, you're from Australia. Okay, is 2000 AD like? Does it hit the stands there, the comic book stands? Because most comic book stores here in America that I'll go to will not import 2000 AD. We don't get a lot of imports, period, with the exception of translated manga stuff. But we don't get a lot of comics from foreign countries on the regular. It's kind of frustrating. Sigmigs, have you read stuff by Craig Thompson, Chris? I am currently reading Habibi. I've read all of Craig Thompson's stuff, and I've met him several times. Big fan, big fan. He's fantastic. You know what? I actually did not finish Habibi. It is some really heavy, heavy stuff. It is a tough book to read because of how serious and heavy the subject matter is. At some point, I plan to pick it back up and force myself to read it because I do find it interesting, and certainly the illustrations are gorgeous, beautiful work. But yeah, that is some really heavy stuff to deal with. And I like Craig Thompson a lot, though, for the record. My favorite writer, either Tom King or Jeff Lemire. And I don't really have a favorite artist. I like a lot of different art styles. Tom King and Jeff Lemire are both really, really solid writers, and I think that they've still potentially got their best work ahead of them. I think that each of them are still sort of on a trajectory of being on the. I mean, especially Tom King. He's definitely newer, but Jeff Lemire has done some really amazing indie and mainstream stuff, and I think that both of them are on the rise. So that's cool. Townsville Tale says that he gets 2000 AD from the newsstands, not from a comic shop. Wow. Huh. Yeah, exactly, Sigamigs. That's why Habibi is so hard to read. I mean, it's honest in a sense, but it's just so brutal. I couldn't. I was just like, no, this is really just so. I can't deal with it. I can't deal with it. I'm gonna have to like sort of really psych myself up for such a serious reading. Um, I'll get there someday, and I look forward to whatever Craig Thompson produces next because I'm sure it'll be fantastic. Um, yeah, I've handed out blankets to a lot of people as gifts over the years because I'm like, yeah, you may not read comics on the reg, but blankets is a fantastic story that anybody can get into and relate to and have a good time. Not a good time, excuse me, but like appreciate. That's more what I was looking for. Oh, Townsville Tale, you missed my terrible, terrible Australian accent last episode. I was trying to practice talking. Hey mate, hey mate, like that hit, mate. Eh, eh. If somebody give me a classic line, and I'll do a flawless. No, I've got an even better idea. Give me any actor, and I will do a perfect impression because I'm so good at impressions. Aldi says, call me weird, but I love Dan Jurgens. Dan Jurgens has done some interesting stuff. I'm not a massive fan, but I've definitely read plenty of his DC Comics work over the years. Uh, yeah. Townsville Tale says, I like James Roberts and Alex Milne's artwork on Transformers too. Haven't been exposed to that myself. All right. Mark Barner says, I have to do Harrison Ford. Look, I need all green jelly beans in my trailer. All right, that's my perfect impression. Julio says, anything from Brubaker or Brian Vaughn? Totally agree with you there, man. Big fan of both. Big fan of both. I'm going to color this all in black, actually. I'm probably going to take off in a little bit, but we'll see. What time is it? It's almost 8 o'clock my time. Means it's probably even later for some of you out there. It's not a knife. That sounded more like Alden Ehrenreich. Is he the guy that's playing Han Solo next? Yeah, probably. As long as you don't try an Australian accent, it should be international law. It should be against international law for Americans to even try. Oh, I could do one. Crikey. Eh? Perfect. Perfect. Flawless. Such talent, such skill. I could do any accent. I could do any impression of any superstar actor out there. Anybody. You guys aren't even challenging me. Townsville Tale says that I'm doing a fantastic accent when I do little bits like a word or two. He says that I've really captured not just an Australian accent, but possibly even a national identity. Like he says that I've just nailed it, and it could lead to a better understanding of people around the world because I found the truth within an accent. Wow, thanks, man. That's really nice of you. No, I know it's frustrating to hear your own accent, your own tongue just butchered or not delivered right. I understand. I find when I sit down and listen to like a New Zealander I can sometimes feel it. I feel like I can do that. I can't really do Australian. There's a difference. Oh, there's a couple new ones. Carrie Fisher, Townsville Tale wants me to do. Okay. Hi, Carrie Fisher. Nailed it. Doing Australian accents is like asking tall guys if they play basketball. That's from Mark Bariner. Okay, I get it. I shouldn't do an Australian accent anymore. I got it. I got it. What else, though? I want to hear someone with a German accent. Darth Salad says Nicolas Cage. I am Nicolas Cage. Hey. Hey, kids. It's me, Nicolas Cage. Perfect. Certainly no one could fault that. No. Nailed it. Okay, what else? Christoph Waltz. Oh, hi, Christoph Waltz here. Do a Mickey Rooney Japanese accent. That's not happening. I bet you can't do Charlie Chaplin's accent. Nailed it. Not nearly insane enough for Nick. No, I know, that was terrible. Do Shirley Temple. Okay. Hey, Mac, name's Shirley Temple. What do you want to drink? Come on, spit it out. Perfect. You know Charlie Chaplin had speaking roles, Darth Salad? Yeah, he probably actually spoke in real life, too. Probably. Yeah, I'm proud of that Shirley Temple one. That one I really got right. Feels good when you just do something right for the day, you know? Feel a sense of accomplishment. Charlie Chaplin sounds like Robert Downey Jr. Deep cut. Chaplin played a Hitler analog in a talkie called The Great Dictator. That's true. Shirley loves my Shirley Temple impression. Thank you. I think I did a very good job too. I don't think I'm gonna finish this, folks. This is what I've come up with. Not quite a full drawing. Charlie once lost a Charlie Chaplin look-alike contest. Well, he didn't look enough like himself. Yeah. All right. I've got a bunch of other stuff to do, so I think I hope you guys don't mind. I'm gonna go work on some episodes of Comic Tropes. I've got one to finish editing and one to finish scripting. If you're not a Patreon subscriber, just know that I currently have a poll up for a future episode that I'm going to be doing. So if you are a Patreon supporter at like $2 a month, you get to vote in that. And I have a new episode dropping probably tomorrow for Patreon members. Just in case you didn't know. So, some of the stuff I'm doing. Hope you guys had fun just hanging out, talking with me and with each other. I always love talking comics and pop culture with people. We had a good time. You guys are great. This is a really good one. Anyway, I do need to take off because I need to do those, and I need to color this previous drawing and touch a few things up. I didn't do a good job on this. This is not what a gun holster looks like, so I gotta fix that and add some colors. But yeah, so I've got stuff to do. But you guys are all fantastic, and until next time that we see each other, keep reading comics. Take care. Bye.